You told me that between your two companies doing school, you probably only spend a couple hours a week of actual downtime. How do you maintain that mindset and that focus?
So there's a phrase that I always tell myself, and it goes something along the lines of, if you can't make yourself go do this, then how do you expect yourself to go accomplish all your goals?
Hey, what's up, Dev Crew? Today I'm with Andrew Gunderman. He's a 19-year-old software developer, IT professional, podcast host, blogger, serial entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and freshman at Ohio State University, who's renowned for his achievements and ambition at a young age. Thanks for coming on, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you. So we connected via LinkedIn, and you were saying how productive you are. And I was like, I'm all about productivity, so I want to learn more about you. But let's start off with your programming journey. Can you tell us how you got into coding?
Yeah. So I'll go a little bit of background on just me in general. So I'm from a town called Hillsboro, Ohio. It's in the middle of nowhere. So there wasn't a lot of programming opportunity in my town. We didn't really have a programming class. We had something for Racket, which is a language that nobody even uses, and most people have never heard of. And so that kind of got me introduced to it a little bit because I took that class. But what really helped is I had a brother who was a programmer. So he showed me a few basic things. So that really helped me to get interested. And it's funny, there were a lot of me jumping into code was actually competition with him. It was me looking at him because he started at 12, so he's amazing. And I was like, wow, I'm like 14, 15 at this point. I'm like, I'm so far behind. And so that's kind of why I like jumped in, and I was like, I want to get to be the best that I can. So I started teaching myself things. My schedule completely flipped. I started waking up at 4 a.m. So I would have a few hours every single day before school to work. That was
crazy.
Like devoted just to code. Yeah. And so that's kind of what I've done ever since, is like that first 4 hours of the day is like coding stuff only. And so, yeah. And through that process, I was able to get an internship. That was a fun process, just messaging everybody, emailing everyone. Eventually, I had 6 interviews at a town like 2 hours away from mine. And so I went up there, interviewed, ended up getting 5 offers, which was really awesome. And so I accepted one of those, and after that internship, I came to OSU. And so that's how I got to here.
So you got your internship before you went to college.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard for people to get internships after they've been into boot camp or just straight, like even within school. I know people who struggle to get internships even after they graduate if they didn't get one beforehand. What set you apart to help you get that internship, since you didn't have the traditional background?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it was just, number one, persistence, and number two, that I was willing to do what a lot of people weren't. You know, I was from a town 2 hours away, and I told a lot of the people and a lot of the interviewers, like, I will sleep in my car. Like, I really don't care. And so that's kind of what I ended up doing through a lot of that summer, was like, we set up some times that I could sleep in like the basements of some people that my mom knew, or like in the office or in the car or something, just because I wanted that. And so it was that mixed with, I was completely self-taught. You know, you're from a town that nobody knows of, doesn't have even a programming class, you taught yourself. So I think companies look at that and they're like, so maybe he's not the best now, but in the future, with how determined he is, he could really be something. And so I think that was something that really helped.
So you were able to, how did you show them that you were, because it's easy to say that you do something. Did you have a body of work to show them, or did you have some projects? How did you prove to them that you knew some coding?
Yeah, so I started doing a little bit of freelancing. So I had some websites and stuff that I built. So like I built my high school robotics website, some other ones for like companies. And yeah, I had my GitHub as well. So I was just always coding. Like it's funny. I think I don't remember like the time frame, but like really quickly I had like over 1,000 commits or something. And so it was just like insane amounts of code. And I think just seeing that, like I said, it's, you know, they like the determination, I think.
That's awesome. So you're just really hungry for it.
Mm-hmm.
So when was your first paid gig then?
It was a little bit after high school, I think. Yeah. So I was building a website for a company. Yeah. So that one, I don't remember the whole story of how that arrived, but I remember we connected on like LinkedIn or something and got to talking, and that kind of just led to that.
Did you have posted that you made websites or on your LinkedIn? Do you know if is that what got them to get interested in having you do the work for them?
I wasn't really posting, so I actually wasn't really super active on LinkedIn except for like a few weeks ago. So I think we just got to talking. I like to have conversations with people on LinkedIn, and I think we were just talking, and then he was like, "Hey, I'm like starting this company, and like I need a website," and so it kind of just led to that.
That's awesome. So where was your entrepreneurial, because you said you've been a serial entrepreneur, where did that really start? Was it with that paid freelancing, or were you doing lemonade stands as a kid, or what was your start as a serial entrepreneur?
Yeah, it wasn't really something that I was like born with or anything. Like, I honestly didn't know anything about starting companies or entrepreneurship in general in high school for the most part. It's like towards the end of senior year, I started. So like part of the internship that I was going in, since it was with a startup, was really focused on the entrepreneurial journey. So like the first thing that we did in that internship was go to a entrepreneur boot camp. So that was just like a throw you into the fire. Here's entrepreneurship, have fun. And I think that was when it really hit me. And I was like, whoa, this is awesome. And like my team, and we were talking to some of the people, we got some crazy feedback on things. And I think when you're young and people see you getting into the entrepreneurial life, I guess, people are impressed, and so that really helps them motivate, I think. So a lot of it was like, wow, these people are super impressed by us. This is cool. Let's learn more about it. And so it kind of just led to that. And the CEO of our company that we worked with was amazing. He's got the craziest story. He came over from like India, it was like $300, and made it super successful. And so having him around was a crazy influence.
Right. Yeah, it's always awesome to have people that were hungry as well around you,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
those are the people that really succeed. So that's really cool. So let's talk about the first company that you helped co-found. It was called Sprout, right? Can you
Mm-hmm.
tell us a little bit about that company and how that got started?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was actually with the team that I interned with. So that one is focused on helping high school students because we were all in high school at that time. And so we all were kind of, we had high school in common. We wanted to help other high school students. It started off with a platform to help high school students find internships, just like how we struggled to find our internships. And so that's kind of what it started off with. It pivoted a bunch, but it still kind of stays in the realm of just helping high school students figure out what they want to do in some way. But yes, I mean, like, that's the basic description of it. But yeah.
Yeah, it's always fun to build projects that I think that's the easiest ones for me to like actually get passionate about, or something that like you're really interested in, or that really can help you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the second one. So it's Veera, right?
Yes.
So why did you start Veera, and can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so it's after I got out of high school, I could no longer play the "oh, I'm in high school" card. And so even if you've had an internship even if you've had one in high school, a lot of the times companies are like, "oh, you're a freshman, so like, what do you know anyway?" So there were a lot of times where I would interview with companies, I talk to companies, and it's like, it seems sometimes no matter how well you perform in the interview, it's just you're a freshman, and they kind of overlook you. And so that kind of plays in general to, I think a lot of the times we're really shallow in our interviews. And so to me, I'd never taken data structure classes or algorithms, things like that. I tried my best to teach myself those, but that takes a lot of time to really get into it and learn all of it and get into that mindset of, oh, this is how this works. And that's what a lot of the interviews are, is, those algorithm or data structure questions. They're basically brain teasers. And so
Right.
something I was always confused about was, if this isn't something that I'll necessarily be doing on my day-to-day job, then why is this what I'm being interviewed on, right? Because I always compare this to, let's say I'm a professional soccer team and I'm hiring a soccer player. I'm not going to be like, oh, sit in the center of the field, and if you kick the ball into the goal, then we'll hire you. Because that's testing one small aspect of the whole big picture. If we're the soccer team, we're like, oh, let's have our candidate play soccer. Show us what they can do. And so that's kind of what the idea of Veera is instead of interviewing with the current methods of just asking brain teasers, how about we have them show us what they can do by actually doing it? So that's kind of the focus of Veera.
That's really cool because that's actually something I've been trying to understand is like how can you prove what you can do? Because I don't completely disagree with the algorithms thing. I see it as a proxy,
Hmm.
and you've probably heard of like the false negative. Like companies
Yeah.
are okay with rejecting good candidates
Hmm.
because of the cost of having bad candidates, right? But I think it sounds like you're going to kind of help people that like sounds like you might be able to help people who are older. I think that'd be really cool because I've talked to people who like don't they get rejected because they're older and there's a lot of ageism in our
Hmm.
industry,
Yeah.
and help people who aren't necessarily like are just better web developers or whatever because a lot
Hmm.
of these algorithm skills are just not needed. They're just
Exactly.
really
Yeah.
not. Some of the mindset behind it might actually help you solve certain problems, but it's just overkill in a lot of
I
instances. So that's
agree.
really cool.
Yeah, yeah, and it's something that I always laugh at is they talk about problem solving, and maybe this is a slight bit of a controversial thing, but like in my mind, problem solving is not problem solving if you put it into every different situation. Like solving physics problems is going to be very different than solving chemistry problems or I don't know, earth science problems or whatever. Like these different problems are all going to have different things that need tailored to them. And so I don't think you can just be like, oh, do math in the interview and that's going to make you good at programming because you're immediately good at problem solving. Like I think there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I help refer another guy I interviewed who kind of has a group on Sundays where he helps people do these interview questions and stuff, and it kind of gets down to like are they actually going to be because I feel in like some ways if all you do is algorithms you can get away with getting the job,
Hmm.
but at certain industries they want people that solve those problems. So
Hmm.
I think part of the problem is a lot of companies are following Google and Facebook when they don't
Exactly.
need that type of developer, and they're
Hmm.
rejecting people that they don't need to reject.
Yeah.
So that's really cool, man. Can you tell us any more about how it's going to help developers' lives become better?
Yeah, so if you actually, we spend a lot of time, I'm on a college campus that has like 50,000 students. So there are a lot of computer science majors here, a lot of programmers. From talking to them, there are a huge majority of people who really dislike those interviews. That is why Veer was born in the first place, is us not thinking that's fair. Like, I actually have a friend who she studied only data structures and algorithms, had never done a side project in her life for code, and was able to get a job with Microsoft. And like she never did any kind of side projects. And I'm like, okay, that's a little bit, in my view, a little bit wrong. And so it's, a lot of us programmers, we want to feel like we're actually being represented. And like truly. So like Veera in another language actually means truth. And so that was kind of why we named it that. Is we want to help discover the truth behind candidates because there's a lot more than just those data structures and those algorithms.
That's really cool. Everyone's going to think this is like a paid advertisement now because you talk so much about it.
Whoops.
I'm just really interested in the concept because I think
Hmm.
anything that can make our lives better will be really cool.
Yeah.
So you told me that between your two companies doing school and even beforehand we were talking, and you probably only spend a couple hours a week of actual downtime, and the rest of the time you consider yourself to be 100% productive. And I want to know like how do you stay so focused?
Hmm.
Because honestly, having willpower and staying focused is hard for a lot of people. It's hard for myself. How do you maintain that mindset and that focus?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, it really helps to. So there's a phrase that I always tell myself, and it goes something along the lines of, if you can't make yourself go do this, then how do you expect yourself to go accomplish all your goals? And that's something that I always remind myself of. So I guess some of it's willpower, and other parts of it is just removing distractions. A lot of the times I'll put my phone in a completely different room, totally forget about it. Obviously, like the computer sometimes can be a distraction because you have like, oh, YouTube and all these things. But I don't usually listen to music or anything. I'll put headphones on just to try to close out outside noises. But yeah, so it's like removing distractions. And I think you have to actively and purposely be focused, like choosing focus. Sometimes I think that might sound like, oh, you can't just do that. But like, I think if you really put your mind to it, it really helps. And honestly, for me, it's like once you get into the groove of things, it gets a lot easier. So I'll like do time blocks of like hours for different things, and I'll just like maybe I'll study for this class for like 3 hours, and I'll just do that, nothing else for that whole time. So yeah, it's for me, it's a mixture of those things.
Cool. You touched on a lot of different stuff there. I really like. There's a book called Indistractable, and it talks about is one of the guys that helped build the distracting apps that we have today. He kind of did. I don't know if he did some of the science behind it or whatnot, but he was talking about a lot of those things about like removing prompts and removing things that can distract us. So I actually like to listen to like white noise stuff a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Kind of block out as well. So that's some good stuff there. So let's go into the other productivity questions. So what does productivity feel like and mean to you as a developer?
So it's for a lot of people, I guess I don't mean different things, but for me, it's really just like being able to look back at what I did for the last like hour or however long and being like, okay, how much time did I spend being distracted? How much time did I spend doing the stuff that I didn't plan on doing? So like, like I said, I will time block and have things on my Google Calendar. And how much time did I spend doing things that weren't on my calendar? And so most often it's very little. It'll just be sitting down and, okay, I will study for that hour or that 3 hours or whatever. And if I can look back and be like, okay, I didn't do anything else, didn't get distracted, that's productive. Along with, I'll usually set different goals in my calendar. So like, oh, if I want to read 50 pages of this physics book or whatever in that amount of time, if I get that goal done. If I don't, that's a lot less productive than I'd like to be, and I need to find some way to fix that.
I like that. So you're talking about just because I think I've focused more on the past of like just putting the time in, but I like the opposite view of focusing on maybe the goals. I think there's a little bit of, although I don't know if you'd agree with this, but there's a little bit of danger in focusing on outcomes if you can't control the outcome. You know what I'm talking about? Like if it's something that's not controllable. But I really like that idea. Do you ever find that it's sometimes hard to, I'm trying to think of a good example of what you can't control an outcome. Well, let's take LinkedIn for example. You can't control how many people connect with you, right? You can control the inputs. You can say, I'm going to do X amount of posts, or I'm going to try to connect without X amount of people. But how do you balance that where you don't get overwhelmed from like the lack of accomplishing a certain goal because you can't control outputs?
Well, I mean, like, I think the biggest rule is don't beat yourself up. I think so many people are unhappy in life because they don't reach their goal, then they immediately are like, oh my gosh, Andrew, you're so stupid, you're a failure, or whatever. Like, to me, it's like if I don't reach my goals, it's always like, okay, you can do better. Now how are we going to fix this? And that's kind of always how I go about it. There have been plenty of times, especially because school admittedly hasn't been my biggest focus in the last few months. So like there are times where like I don't do well in like an exam or something, and I'll just look at myself and be like, okay, you can do better than that. Like, and I think a lot of it is taking a look at yourself and being like, okay, like how much effort did I really put in? Like, did I deserve the A that I wanted? And if you can't say that you did, that's something you need to fix next time.
That's an awesome way to look at it. I like that a lot. So what's your favorite tool? Like, let's talk, it could be an IDE, like a coding tool, or something that helps you with task management or productivity and like you're managing time. Yeah.
So I mean, Google Calendar, as I've mentioned, like that's amazing. Like I didn't actually use Google Calendar too much before like this year. And one of my co-founders of Veera actually was using it a bunch, and I was like, okay, yeah, I need to like time block or do something to be more organized with all the things I have going on. And so I started using Google Calendar, and ever since I do everything on the calendar. Like a lot of times, I mentioned earlier, I list things, so like all the tasks I need to get done, but I'll also schedule times for them. So that really helps. So it's not like a to-do list, because they say like, I don't remember, 40 or 60% or some huge percent of things on to-do lists don't get done. And they say you should schedule them. So I kind of follow that and I schedule them. So I mean, yeah, Google Calendar. And then like coding wise, I love Visual Studio because I love C#. C# is, so I started out coding with Java, and then I kind of switched over to C#. So C# is like one of my favorite things ever, honestly. But lately, since A lot of the products that I've been building, it wouldn't make any sense to make them like desktop applications or etc. And so a lot of them I focus on just doing web things I'm more familiar with, so like JavaScript. So I use some like Visual Studio Code. I am not like super big on Microsoft, like love Microsoft, but not like super focused on Microsoft products versus like Macs or whatever. But I just tend to use Microsoft products because I'm more familiar with them. But
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I like C# as well.
mhm.
So I had a follow-up question to your the first part of what you said with Google Calendar, because I about 10 years ago I went on a mission for my church and we used all paper planners all the time to do everything, and I was really good at that. But ever since I've been horrible at using Google Calendar. How do you because like I can't tell you how many times I've created different schedules and I
Yeah.
end up ignoring my prompts over
hmm
and over on my phone. So what do you do to help avoid ignoring prompts? Do you build in like a habit? Like, have you been able to create a habit to look at it frequently, or because even looking at your phone can be distracting, right? So how do you make it work for you versus work against you?
Yeah. I mean, I check the calendar like quite a bit, but usually it's like in between tasks. So like so I'll be on LinkedIn, but I usually don't allow myself to be on LinkedIn unless I'm in between tasks and like switching. So then I can have like 5 minutes or something to like, okay, you can be on LinkedIn, you can maybe post something or reply to something, but then after that, it's back on the grind for whatever else you're doing. But yeah, I don't know. Not to say a lot of my things are willpower, but I think a lot of them are just focusing on like, for me, focusing on goals and like the outcomes that I want does work. I mean, a lot of people, as you mentioned, will say like, oh, focusing on outcomes isn't necessarily a good thing. But I mean, I think people say a lot of things aren't good things that in reality it really doesn't matter because we're all different. But yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I like that a lot. So I think what I'm gonna start doing is start trying to make like after I have a time block, make my prompt after I complete some certain task, look at my calendar because I think that'll help a lot. So thanks for
hmm
that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
also, sorry, not to cut you off.
no, go ahead.
I always focus on like the big things I have going on that day. And so like if you ask me the day before any other day, so like you ask me Monday, I will know what's going on Tuesday every single time. And so I think if you know, number one, what you are going to be doing the next day, it really helps so you don't have to look at the calendar as much. But it gives you something to look forward to. So I think that helps keep you focused in general because it's like, okay, if I can just get this done, then I'm a little bit closer to what I want to do.
That's awesome. I like using that too. So what's your favorite productivity technique or paradigm? So I'm thinking of things like getting things done or tomato timer. It sounds like time blocking is probably your
hmm
biggest one.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I've
you want
never
to
heard
talk?
of the other ones.
Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff out there. I mean, kind of like you said, like whatever works for you. Like there's lots of different paths to success, right?
hmm
So can you talk a little bit more about how time blocking works for you? Do you always do 3 hour chunks, or do you mix them up depending on how much time you have in your day? What's most effective for you?
Yeah, I'll always switch it up depending on so priority of tasks is huge. So like I have a quiz coming up in a class, and so for that, all my studying for that is way more prioritized than everything else. And so I will reserve like huge chunks for that. So like tomorrow, it's like I have like 4 hours early in the day to like just study for that, and then I have like three or something later on in the day for that as well. So it kind of depends on number one priorities and number two like what things I have to schedule around because my classes are kind of all up in the place in terms of time. I have them like throughout the day. So
Awesome. When are you most productive? Like either from a mindset perspective or from like the time of day?
I would say morning. I mean, like I'll get up usually like I say four, but usually it's like in between 2 to 4. Most often it's 4, but I've gone up at 2 quite a few times. I startled my roommates because they're not even asleep by then usually. But yeah, so it's usually in the morning. I like to have that several hours to get stuff done, and it provides I have 8 a.m. classes almost every day, so it gives me that time before those to really get everything I need done. So yeah, I would say in the morning, but I mean, it doesn't really matter too much. I think I've built a lot of adaptability into myself. So like, if I need to stay up till 2 in the morning, I can do that too. And I don't think it's super different in terms of productivity, besides the fact that I have other people around. So being up in the morning helps because no one else is up.
Right. So how many hours of sleep do you get if you're getting up at 2 a.m.?
It depends. Usually I will only do 2 a.m.s if it's like there's something the next day that needs to get done and I need that time. I try to get a decent amount of sleep, but usually it's like anywhere from 3 to 7. But like that's pretty rare. That's usually like deadlines, like have to get something done by then. But most often it's like 7.
That's interesting. So rather than, because I remember pulling all-nighters when I was in school. So rather than pull all-nighters, you'd rather get some sleep to try to get rested beforehand?
Not really. So to me, I have it in my mind that like I will do whatever is necessary to do whatever I want to do. Like that is my motto. So if I want to do well on a quiz, like I will pull an all-nighter and be like, you know what, it's what I need to do to get to where I want to go. Like that post that I had on LinkedIn that I received a ton of hate for recently about hard work, that is kind of what I was thinking is like sometimes you've got to put in the hard work. So like I had a TA last semester who was like, if you guys have a test the next day and you're not prepared, they're like, still go, just go to sleep. You know, you might not do well in the exam, but you'll have gotten to sleep. And I'm like, dude, like, what are you going to remember like 2 weeks from now? Like, are you going to look back and be like, oh, thank goodness I got that sleep? Or are you going to be like, dude, I failed that test? Like you're going to remember the test. And so I choose to, if whatever's necessary to do well. Like if I need to stay up 36 hours straight studying for an exam, like I'm going to do that if I need to. I have not had to do that yet, but like if that was necessary, like to me, it's worth it because it's what is going to affect me in the future.
So do you think you're wired a little bit differently than most people are? Because that's actually how we met, was from that post. And I was thinking, okay, like, and I even talked to my wife a little bit about it. I was like, and she was like, oh, he's like a Elon Musk, right? So like that type of mentality, right? Do you think you're wired a little bit differently than most people are?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like that post, I received so much hate on it that it went trending. So like
that's awesome though, right? You got some visibility, so
yeah. But I mean, it just makes me laugh. But yeah, I would say definitely. It's funny because I wasn't expecting to receive that kind of response. Like to me, I was just posting, and then I like look, and I have like hundreds of comments, and I'm like, whoa. But yeah, so like to me, I've never met anyone like me, which is something that's actually sad. So like the big reason I want to start the podcast is because I'm trying to get my name out there. So like my goal for 2020 is trying to get my name out there a little bit more, because you know you're not going to meet anyone who's like super ambitious or like me unless you're like getting out there and putting yourself out there, because the people that are like me are going to be, well, not saying that I will necessarily, but like people who are super ambitious and super driven and like what I want to be, you know, they're a lot of times already successful. And so to find those people, you've got to really put yourself out there and be someone that they would want to be friends with. And so I'm always trying to mold myself into that. So yeah, I don't think that there are many people like me, honestly. It's not a lifestyle that people would want. You know, like a lot of people want more leisure time, and that's just not something that I care too much about. Like I care about material success more than a lot of people do, I think. And a lot of people will hate on that, but I mean, that's fine. They can think what they want. Like we all value different things.
Right.
But yeah, it's hard to find other people that are like super determined, I think.
Yeah, so it's probably hard to keep positive then. How do you surround yourself with other like-minded people who aren't going to, because honestly, like I'm more of the moderate side, and I'm all for you doing what you love to do. But how do you keep positive, because like you know how you become the sum of like the people around, the closest 5 people around you. I think Peter Drucker or whatever said something like that. How do you surround yourself with people like that?
Yeah, I mean, so in reality, that rule is pretty much why I spend such little time with other people, is because I haven't found a lot of people that are like me. So like those 3 people or 2 people that I like spend any time with, like those are people who are like, they want something in life. They're pretty ambitious. Like I have no problem with you if you're like not trying to go crazy in life like I am. But like I don't have time to build in unless you're like inspiring me or empowering me in some way, or unless I can help inspire you. And so like yeah, it's hard to find people like that, but I mean I don't struggle to like be positive. I am extremely positive, extremely optimistic. I don't know, that's because it's kind of how I've wired myself, honestly. So yeah, it's hard, but yeah.
That's awesome, man. So, what's the best advice you've received on productivity from someone else?
Mm, from someone else. I think just removing distractions, like that is huge in general. Like I remember in high school when I would play music all the time, and I love music way too much. Like those people that just get up and start dancing to music. Yeah, that's me every single time.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, like terrible images in your head. But like so not playing music really helps because if I play music, then I will just be so distracted. And my dad used to always tell me, and he was right, it's you can't multitask as well as you think you can. So like trying to do multiple things at once is not always a good thing. So like listening to music in the background a lot of the times will distract you, at least if it has words. So that's kind of why I tend to not do it. And also, actually, so no, the biggest thing about productivity is learning to say no. Like that is actually 100% the biggest. There are so many things that I could be doing like right now or all the time. So many organizations on campus. Like there are so many distractions. It actually makes me laugh because during finals week they have these de-stress events. And to me, I'm like, this is not how stress works. Like you don't go to an event to like have fun and then de-stress you about like finals. Like to me, you're not stressed if you are prepared. And
Right.
so you've got to learn to say no to things that you can see and aren't good for you. So like
Right.
if it's hanging out with someone who isn't the best influence on you, got to learn to say no. But yeah.
I love that. I love that advice, man. So, I really appreciate your time and taking with us to learn more about you. How can we follow you and follow you on your journey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can look at my personal website, andrewgunderman.com, or my LinkedIn. So just search me up, Andrew Gunderman.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to put it in the description for those links below. So,
All
thanks
right.
so much again, Andrew,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
we hope to see some awesome things in the future.
Oh, you will, I'm sure. All right.